Hi, it's Heather. I'm a certified arborist in Bloomington, Indiana, and today I thought we'd talk a little bit about hydrangeas. So, one thing that I've seen pop up, um, people want to know about cutting back their hydrangeas in the fall. So, I put my thinking cap on and put together a list of all the hydrangeas that need cutting back in the fall. And here is that list. Zero. Zero hydrangeas need cut back in the fall. So that is one thing that you can cross off your to-do list. So a couple things about hydrangeas, especially the oak leaf hydrangeas in the larger forms. This one is Snow Queen. So Snow Queen is one of the biggest Hydrangea quercifolias. You might also, what is that one? Alice? Alice is a good one. There's also a small one called, I think it's called Ruby Slippers. But a lot of people want to know about keeping these guys in size, to a size that works, so they don't get too big. So the number one most important thing about keeping an oak leaf hydrangea in the same spot for a long time is picking the right one. So, this guy, the Snow Queen, this is the biggest one that's available. And so we want to make sure we don't put a hydrangea like Snow Queen or even Alice really too close to the house, definitely not closer than, say, 8 or 10 feet. And then also just, in our plantings, we want to make sure that we don't plant too close to these hydrangeas. Just so they have space to grow and can stay where they are for a long time, because birds really like to sit in these guys. So once we have them in our yards, we want to make sure that they can stay there. So one thing I see when someone might say that their oak leaf hydrangea isn't flowering. And I'll go take a look, and it'll turn out that it has, just been kind of cut across, and we don't need to do that. So I just want to show you so you know where the flowers form. So see if I can show you. So, we have this year's old flower right here. And then we come back a little further on the stem and we see these two guys. Those are next year's flowers. And so, when we just kind of arbitrarily cut these stems off, we're going to be cutting off next year's flowers. So, and also in the fall, it's just kind of better to let these guys do what they're going to do. They're going to, drop their chlorophyll and start working on growing their roots. So, it's just best to just kind of leave them alone and enjoy the foliage change. So when we do want to prune these guys, we can prune them in the winter. If we prune in the winter, we'll get some growth off of there. So um, one thing that's good to do is we can pick a few of the oldest stems every couple of years to remove. The oldest stems will tend to be the tallest also. So if we're looking at controlling size, um, by picking the oldest stems to remove all the way to the ground, um, that way, that's a nice way to control size. And if we do that in the winter, we'll get some new fresh stems coming up off of that. Or we can actually do the same thing in the summer, uh, and that will be a removal. So if the plant in general is just too thick and we kind of want it to maybe some more light shine through so all sides of the plant get sun, um, you know, taking out a few of the biggest stems in the summer, um, that will create a more open look. Um, Also, another thing we can do, I don't think I have a lot I can show you here, maybe a couple. Um, let's see. So, um, when we have some stems that grow on the interior of the plant, those ones, we can prune those down to a branching. See this branch collar here? We can prune some of those off just to create a little bit more light inside the plant. But anyway, so uh, that's how we can keep these guys looking nice and natural so that we can enjoy their shape and their flowers and their color. And so another one that I see people pruning kind of inappropriately would be the Hydrangea paniculatas. These guys tend to get kind of these kinds of flowers. The paniculata species, that's kind of the parent plant of the limelight and little lime hydrangeas. So when we're talking about the species one, also, we don't need to cut this back in the fall. But one thing I think that's helpful, if you don't want a whole bunch of extra plants, would be to take a look at your plant in the summer and let's see, some of these lower branches all the way down to the ground here. So these guys will tend to touch the ground, and wherever they touch the ground, a new plant will form. And granted, I have gotten, this is actually a free plant I got off of a parent plant, and that parent plant also has 2 more babies right now. And then it had 3 other babies that I moved to the backyard. So it just depends on, what you want your garden tasks to look like. If you like having free plants to share with people, or to you know add plant communities in your own yard, then you can limit up, or leave it and then dig up the babies. Or, if you like to keep things a little neater, more under control, or you have a smaller yard, then you can go ahead and use a nice small handsaw, and you can limb up some of those lower branches so we don't have branches touching the ground. Other than that, these guys tend to have a looser, uh, a looser kind of profile. So one thing we can do is thin out some of the upward growers. Like this one would be a good one to get rid of. Probably that one. And then every few years, we can thin out some of the flowering branches too to make way for, you know, fresher branches to flower. And so I think I mentioned that the paniculata species, Hydrangea, is the parent plant of the limelight hydrangea. So one thing, we definitely on the limelights, I'm sorry, I still have this, what do you call that? The red flowering raspberry. I still have this kind of growing in with the limelight guy. So definitely on the limelights, don't just cut them across, or even don't just snip them at the ends. They tend to grow way quicker the more we prune them. So, you know, in a way, pruning these guys in the winter is kind of, or summer is kind of the way to go. And kind of like how I approach these guys is, you know, if I have a lateral stem that has some upright stems, those guys I'll take out. I also try to make sure that, you know, there's always a tallest bud compared to everything else on the branch. That can also kind of help slow down how fast these grow. But in general, those guys I would definitely not whack. So a couple of other hydrangeas, we have the Annabelles, and Annabelles are just super, super easy. We definitely don't need to prune these this time of year. I think these grow on old wood. So kind of just, you know, as the winter wears on, you know, we can kind of see which stems are going to be the oldest. And, you know, we might even notice some, like that guy. We can just kind of wiggle him out and just remove him just like that. And for me, little stems like this, I might even just put under the plant so I've got some stuff to help hold leaves down later. But really, yeah, we don't need to shear these. We don't need to do a lot of pruning on them. Personally, I like to leave the flower heads. I think they're kind of cool, you know, to see them like in the winter with snow on them or ice. Ice is really cool on them. So, you know, that's definitely one you can take off your garden task. I mean, I suppose if you're really bored, like I can see a few little branching things on this guy that, you know, I would correct. But you can also wait. And so those guys are very similar, except in size, to the Hydrangea arborescens. And same deal with those. We can wait until later in the winter to kind of wiggle some stems, to take things out, but we definitely don't need to just cut across them. So they'll super easy plant. You just leave it alone. So, and then another hydrangea, we have the Hydrangea macrophylla. I think this one is twist and shout. So there's several of these. There's Nico Blue, Endless Summer. Oh, I think they came out with some other ones like Blushing Bride. That's pretty gorgeous. So the macrophylla hydrangeas, um, you know, they're kind of cool because they bloom on new and old wood. So like if you have deer problems or, maybe like in Minnesota where they have really cold temperatures, you can still get blooms that way. The deal here in Indiana, the macrophylla hydrangeas really depend on microclimates for blooming because, so here's the weird thing. So these guys bloom really good in Minnesota. In fact, some of them I think were developed in Minnesota. But what Minnesota has that we don't always is good snow cover when it's super cold. So quite often we have, we can have very cold temperatures without any snow cover. And so the buds on the older stems can be damaged that way. So here was my experiment. Now, granted, I have a customer friend, whatever. She has hers, Endless Summer, just right under her dryer vent, and that hydrangea is still blooming. It is so gorgeous. It's huge, but it's against a brick wall. It faces east. And so it's a perfect situation for that guy. So anytime you can have these in a sunny, protected place in Indiana, that's the thing. What I did experiment with is, and it was just kind of by accident. I had one year where this particular one was just loaded with flower buds, and then we had a very late frost, and I got very bummed out that it wasn't going to bloom, and so I didn't do anything to it. I just kind of ignored it, and I think it ended up blooming very well that year. So just kind of whether it's for luck or whatever, I've just found, leaving the stems alone on the macrophylla hydrangeas, that seems to work best for me. And in fact, you can even, I might even pack some oak leaves in here. Oak leaves are nice because since they're oily, they don't kind of compost on the stems, but they'll protect the newer stems. So anyway, so I leave the old stems just, even if they get, frosted quite badly, I will leave them until June and, or so, and they will almost always begin to leaf out and flower. So just, I think, there's for every person, for every time I say, don't cut them, there's someone who will cut theirs to the ground in the fall every year and it flowers like crazy. I don't think you need to do that. I don't necessarily think it's great for the plant, because the plant has to then kind of replace its whole self. And so you might have stems that are maybe not strong enough to hold the flowers up, or you might be prone to sucking insects. So I would say just leave those alone. If you want to, you can put some oak leaves inside, kind of protect the crown. Um, and and then you know, I don't think it's actually a hydrangea, but we have the climbing hydrangea. Um, and we also don't need to do anything to these guys except, you know, no, I think it's actually even a little too late to do any tying. So those stems are a little rigid. So, so yeah. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention it because you know there's plenty of other garden tasks that we need to do in the fall. So it's always nice to know that there's at least one thing that you don't have to do at all. So anyway, that's hydrangea pruning for the fall or not. Anyway, let me know if you have any other fall plant questions, tree questions, garden questions. Yeah. So anyway, it always helps if you subscribe and like the video and maybe tell your friends about it. So anyway, thanks. Have a great day.